collectively for about 10 years now. Excuse me while I get this over here. For about 10 years now, as we come together. Excuse me, I'm trying this new thing. So I got it. So as we come together, we've been organizing for about 10 years, and we do this as operating by what we call our pillar system. There are different individuals and organizations that have signed up to be pillars of justice and beyond. So while you may see my face, and I am Reverend Gregory Manning, there are many behind the scenes that are working to make justice and beyond happen as we work on several areas that we focus on, specifically environmental justice, criminal justice, education justice, in order to make sure that we amplify the voices of brown and black people, especially, and work for justice and equity and dismantling of systemic institutional racism. So with that said, know that we do our planning on every Tuesday at noon on this very same link. If you would like to be a pillar of justice and beyond, and would like to be participatory in helping us move forward, we'd love to have you just come and join us on Tuesdays at noon. So with that said, we're gonna hop right into this forum as we hear from our candidates tonight. Let me say this, if by chance we are victims of Zoom bombing, please know that we may have to shut down the forum, but we'll get it back up as quickly as possible, and we want you to sign back in. And so I'm going to begin tonight by announcing each one of our candidates. Know this, I want to give you at most 90 seconds to do an introduction of yourself, and then we'll run through all of that. With the questions that are pre-written that you will receive, you will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Our timekeeper will come in about 30 seconds before that 2 minutes has elapsed, and let you know that you have 30 seconds left, and then time when that time is up. And then after we have 3 questions that we will give to you, we will then have a rapid response in time, and then you will answer with those questions simply yes or no. And so I'm going to call each candidate in alphabetical order and ask that you would give us at most 90-second introduction of yourself. Please correct me if I do not pronounce your name correctly. Again, we're very grateful for you being here with us tonight at Justice and Beyond. Again, first, I welcome Mr. Patrick Barthel. Is that correct? Am I saying your name correctly?
I don't believe he's here yet.
Okay, very good.
We only have we have 2 people here so far.
Okay, who is here?
Sean Wilson and oh, why am I missing the other one? Can somebody help me out?
Frank Skurlot.
Yes.
Okay, very good. We're going to first begin, and we're anticipating 2 candidates did inform us that they would not be attending at the very last moment. That was Mr. Lundy and Mr. Nelson. And so we will proceed with candidates that we have. We're so glad that you're here tonight. Mr. Frank Skurlot, welcome, sir. Would you please take a minute and a half to give us some opening remarks?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. This is the first for me with your forum, so congratulations. I didn't know it existed, but what a blessing. And I think the most important thing that's already been said by honoring God and opening up a moment of word. And as it relates to criminal justice, as it relates to the state of Louisiana in all things, from our economy to our education, and sadly, the #1 topic, as we all know, is crime. And it's crime not only in the city of New Orleans, but when we were at a couple of forums last week, it was clearly stated that of the top 10 cities in the United States, 3 sadly were in Louisiana for the highest in crime. Obviously, that's Shreveport, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans, and it needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be dealt with head on. I'm encouraged that the Attorney General, Jeff Landry, is running as a participant in seek of the governor's office. However, I'm troubled by wondering if in his current position for 7 years, why couldn't something better be done? And know that as a white male, educated white male, but I love all my brothers and sisters in Christ, and even not in Christ, no matter if they're African American, Indian, or Chinese, because we're all God's children. And I believe that the only real hope we have for the cleansing and cleaning up of our state is what our founding fathers decided. We operate on a parish system as opposed to a county system, which is a religious structure. And it would be my hope as a leader for the whole state is to let people understand the differences and the fundamentals, that we can all coexist, and most importantly, love one another, because if we don't do it together, we know the consequences.
Thank you, Mr.
No
Skurlock. We
party
appreciate.
independent. I'm an entrepreneur, and I look forward to participating in your questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you being here tonight. Dr. Sean Wilson, thank you so much for participating in the forum tonight. 1 minute and a half, 90 seconds, sir, for introductions, please.
Thank you, Pastor Manning, and thank you to all of your members who participated in today's forum. I am Dr. Sean Wilson, candidate for governor and a native of New Orleans, a son of this great city. My mom actually still lives in the house she raised my brother and I in, and it's definitely a shotgun house, and it's got lots of history for us. And Algiers is where I hail from. I'm the only candidate in this race with 25 years of public service, delivering real solutions for hardworking families of our state, both Republicans and Democrats alike. Whether it was a Democratic administration or a Republican administration, I've been able to build bridges, literally and figuratively speaking, building opportunities to access people to better lives and better ways of life. As a candidate for governor, I'm interested in addressing the extreme polarization that we see in our states. And I'm dedicated to actually bringing people together and getting beyond some of the partisanship. You know, this campaign is about real issues, and never before do we have an opportunity to build on 8 years of success of putting people first. And I'm honored to be a candidate endorsed by Governor Edwards, as well as Congressman Carter, and picked up former Congressman Cedric Richmond's endorsement today to leverage what I've done as transportation secretary. That's what I'm going to do as governor, is put the people first, work thoughtfully and honorably, with distinction, with transparency, with integrity. It's time that we set aside political divisions, because every one of us in this state have an opportunity to engage and be properly represented. And it's unfortunate that it has become chic to avoid the opportunity to have tough discussions and have questions and have your issues and ideas challenged. We saw that with Representative or Attorney General Landry. While he's been absent on crime and criminal justice for the last 7.5 years, he was absent from several debates talking to everyday people. And you yourself, Pastor, mentioned that 2 candidates decided to pull out today. When you give people your word, you need to honor that. And I'm here because I care about your opinions, I care about your community and the issues that are important to you. And I look forward to your questions this evening.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. We again appreciate you being here tonight. I'm going to ask you the very first question. Let me ask my pillars if there's any other candidates that have appeared that I'm not aware of. Hearing none, we'll continue. First, we're going to go to Mr. Skurlock, but the same question will be for both candidates tonight. Let me ask you this. What statewide programs are you intend to be your priorities if elected over the next 4 years? And where do you propose to get the funding for these programs? Be as specific as possible. Mr. Skurlock. Mr. Skurlock. Did I freeze or did he freeze?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
As far as it goes to criminal justice, I believe it is direct correlation to the economic condition. I believe that the true answer to this is the mass job creation throughout the
Mr.
state.
Skurlock, let me pause there, because I don't know if you went right to criminal justice, which is going to be the second question about crime. But this is what statewide programs, and maybe you did understand, I'm not sure, what statewide programs do you intend to make your priorities, and how do you intend to pay for them?
Well, I've been meeting with all the different police bodies and jurisdictions and sheriffs throughout the state. Have it be Monroe, where we were at a forum a couple of weeks ago, Shreveport last week, certainly New Orleans all the time. And as far as a program, I don't think it's so much as a program, it's more of a commitment. It's 4 words in my book. And those 4 words are very simple. Whatever it takes. We're at a juncture like no history of our state. None. The city of New Orleans, it is absolutely ridiculous. I was at the Urban League Forum just last week that I was at the watch party there. And when I walked out and I walked to my car, the car right next to me had a brick thrown through the window. And that's just unacceptable. And it's got to stop. So we need, in my opinion, a defining moment, sadly, in reference to Katrina, when Russell Honore was in front of the convention center and said, it stops now. We need a stops now moment. And under my leaderships, that's what we'll have. It's not a program. Programs cost money. It's a commitment of follow through to let the authorities do what they need to do. But they're only as good as the criminal justice system on the backside to enforce the crime through the DA's office and the prosecutors. I will see to it that our Attorney General follows through and gives them and compels them to do what's fair and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Skurlock. Dr. Sean Wilson, same question.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. I will tell you, there'll be programs that we will fund in the space of public safety. We'll look at infrastructure to actually build our state, economic development, and of course, education. In all those cases, the way you pay for them is you prioritize those issues. So from an education perspective, we've got to make an investment in early childhood education, one that's sustainable. If you really want to affect the public safety side, start investing in early childhood education. We've got 159,000 young people across our state that need those services. And the way you fund them is when you look at the budget, you see that we have a $2 billion surplus. Clearly, we could spend an additional 20, 30, $40 million to be able to fund a program and do it sustainably that allows us to increase it over time to be able to bring attention to the need of educating more of our children at a younger age. I'll also tell you the same thing with infrastructure. You can't give us enough money to build it all at one time. So you give incremental investments to infrastructure. That's going to happen in a Wilson administration. And you have to address the economics of what we do. How do you build a workforce? How do you increase wages? That's going to require investment in small business. That will require investment in technology. That will require us to address the tax code so people can retain more money and make the bigger investments that they need in their lifestyles. And then last, but certainly not least, I have to tell you that from a criminal justice or public safety standpoint, we've got to make investments in technology, lights, cameras, other services that will add and support the deterrence of crime. But more importantly, we've got to make investments so that when individuals who have been in prison, that they come out with experiences and knowledge and job opportunities and jobs. All of that's going to take resources. And the way you fund it, I'm the candidate that has said a portion of the 0.45 temporary sales tax ought to be retained to make these investments. And you diminish that over time as you start to grow your budget and grow your economy. That's how you fund these types of projects. You can't do it all at one time. You have to be thoughtful. In the world of infrastructure, we've invested $300 million, $150 million recurring this year, and another $150 million next year. And so those are examples that we have. And I see Valerie's holding up a sign that wasn't very clear. Thank you, Valerie, but I think you're telling me to stop.
Very good. And Valerie, if you are more than welcome to give a audible sign as well too, to simply say 30 seconds left. And both of you, and let me start with Dr. Wilson, you first on this question, and then we'll go to Mr. Skurlock. And you would address this somewhat as well as Mr. Skurlock did as well too. But we know even from this forum that crime is on everybody's minds across the statewide and even nationwide. And so what do you think, and again, I know you touched on this, but expound on it even more. What do you think are the most effective strategies to address the root causes of crime?
Yeah,
Dr.
great
Wilson.
question. I will tell you, I know what's not effective, and that is fighting a culture war that is not going to really impact the issue. And I think that's what the Attorney General has done to stop law enforcement. And under his watch, we've seen crime skyrocket. I'm not throwing arrows. I'm just looking at the statistics. We can all see what that increase is. The fact that it spiraled out of control under his watch gives me tremendous concern. More importantly, his effort to concentrate that crime problem in New Orleans and Baton Rouge and Shreveport is unacceptable. I will tell you, we need to be thoughtful and we need to be constitutional and we need to embrace justice and fairness. We need to be smart on crime and solve these problems. These are old problems, but solve them in new ways. And as governor, I'll invest in proven interventions and preventions to be able to do that. Looking at juvenile assessment centers, looking at reentry programs, looking at making sure that we hold ourselves accountable to a standard of care for what we provide. We've seen court interventions just this week in terms of how to best maintain and hold individuals who are offenders. We've got to be thoughtful and civilized in that approach. As governor, I will invest in those opportunities to have a community-driven approach to crime. Investing in early childhood education, investing in education are ways to reduce what we see. Working with local governments, working with the faith-based community, and working with nonprofits to ensure that idle time of young people and adults is filled with something meaningful and productive, regardless of your zip code, regardless of your region, regardless of the value of the home, or if you're living in affordable housing, or if you're living in publicly assisted housing. You need to have resources to be able to do that. And I really appreciate it. And I think Valerie's holding up another sign that says stop.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
No,
Wilson.
I'm sorry. No, Dr. Wilson, you have 1 minute. I'm trying to clear it out. Okay, the white sheet would mean 1 minute.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So,
All right.
well, in terms of that last 1 minute I have, I will tell you, in this area of public safety, we also have to invest in things like mental health. We have to put more counselors in schools. We have to address the fentanyl crisis like we've never seen. I am personally touched by that. We had family members that deal with addiction that have struggled. We have lost family members to that. Far too many people, thousands of people in our state are dying as a result of this fentanyl epidemic. And we've got to be smart and thoughtful on how to do it. And so it comes with a program to do overdose intervention and reversal, talks about prevention and educating folks, and then providing access for them to assistance and training, professional training, to ensure that they don't find themselves back in that same position again. So I think I'll give a little time back.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Mr. Scurlock.
Well, I think cameras don't stop crime. I think cameras record crime. And as I said, as the entrepreneurial candidate that's opened up 500 retail locations across the country, including a stint of living at Disney World for 12 years, I think you can look at the statistics for in cities that have viable economics that work and compare their crime records and percentages versus cities that are financially challenged like New Orleans. It's all about economics. It truly is. Just look at the comparison between Orleans and Jefferson, night and day. There's hardly any retail that exists in Orleans. There's no shopping center, okay? And for those of y'all that know me, how I got into politics was because I just simply wanted to open up or reopen Jazzland. And the city said no. So I said, I'm running for governor. At that time, I was running for mayor. But I still believe that if we create a atmosphere of love and care and compassion, that it doesn't have to be a quote program. A program is not what comes from a pulpit. A message comes from the governor's office of how people can come together. You see, especially when it comes to race, I kind of look at New Orleans as like the gumbo pot and the whole state. See, we're all different. Some people like sausage, some people like shrimp, some people like the okra, the corn. But at the end of the day, we're all connected by this root. And I believe this root is coming from Baton Rouge. It's whoever is blessed with the opportunity to lead, they stimulate and energize not only the people, but more importantly, the industry by eliminating state income tax to have people want to relocate and come back to Louisiana, by having a $20 an hour minimum wage across the state. That's just for starters. At the end of the day, the only way you're going to solve crime is by eliminating the need to have a crime. The reason people have crime is because they want something they can't afford. That's what it is. So as far as programs, the only program is whatever it takes to the local law enforcement throughout the state, but that shall only be as good as the backbone enforcement. I've had the opportunity to travel the world. I've gone to Dubai. I've been with the sheiks of Dubai, whose entourage is 2 uniformed policemen on mopeds compared to a president of the United States that basically shuts down an entire city when he comes to town. And the reason the difference is the consequence. In Dubai, they actually take matters serious. In the United States, we don't. It goes back to the legal system. I'm not a
Thank
lawyer.
you.
I'm a business person.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm
Thank you.
glad you're a businessman. Thank you. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you, Mrs. Gerlach. We appreciate that answer. So here's what we know. We know that the revenue has to come from somewhere. And we know that there are many different streams of revenue. And I'm going to pose this question first to Mr. Gerlach. We know there's many different streams of revenue that are going to pay for the state expenses. What we'd like to know is, how do you plan to utilize those forms of revenue, such as individual income tax, corporate taxes, property taxes, and sales taxes, in order to pay for those state expenses? And feel free to utilize percentages in terms of how you would use each one of those streams of revenue. So first to you, Mr. Gerlach, how would you utilize those streams of revenue in terms of percentage if you want to pay for state expenses?
Okay, wait a minute. Excuse me. I'm sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. The white sheet mean 1 minute. You have 1 minute left. The orange sheet that's saying please stop. And after please stop, I give you a couple of seconds. Then I'm sorry, but we like to do things decent in order. I had to interrupt you all. I am so sorry. But the orange sign mean please stop. Thank you.
Hold up the orange sign. Hold up the orange sign.
Okay, y'all ready?
All right, very good. Go ahead,
Yes.
Mr. Gerlach, you first.
Once again, it's as far as economics and stuff. Look, the government could spend as much money as it wants, and it's proven not only for where we are today, but look at with COVID, look at all the challenges. The people simply don't have the money, okay? They're starving out there. They truly are. But that's why we have homelessness, okay? That's why we have the crime. So it goes back to economics. I believe that we should not have a state income tax. I lived in Florida for over 10 years, and I saw prosperity beyond belief. I think, not only I think, I know. Now, I will also say, I'll go on record again, that we will double educators' salary within 4 years of assuming office. It's a very bold statement. So how do you do that? You do that by welcoming people to the state. You see, in Central Florida, they have a community called the Villages. It's very large. It's an active adult community. It has 80,000 people. Louisiana, Sportsman's Paradise. We should have not one of those. We should have multiple of those. At the end of the day, we're all going to get older, and you can rest assured, especially from a senior citizen standpoint, they don't want to move where they have crime. So going back from my experience, world travels, theme parks, industries, job creation, industries, it's called accountability. Now, I will say, I believe these programs that do exist, especially law enforcement, that's why we have sales taxes. And those sales taxes is obviously percentage by the cost basis of what it takes to exist in that particular territory. And if you look at any city's budget, I believe on average, it's well over 60% on every metropolitan city in the United States goes straight to crime. So how do you solve it? Not just in New Orleans, but everywhere? You have consequences. You have penalties. I loved Harry Lee in Jefferson Parish, and we need a Harry Lee moment in Orleans and in the entire state.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gerlach. Dr. Wilson.
Well, I will tell you, you know, the importance of having a fair and transparent and predictable tax structure is super important for every business and citizen. But it's also important to fund education and to pay teachers and build an effective 21st century infrastructure system, whether it's expanding Medicaid or investing in early childhood education. Those things are important. Question that we have to ask ourselves is how much money do we need? And the fact that in Louisiana, healthcare, education, and public safety are unprotected. Those are giving me concerns. Those issues give me concern because we aren't investing. And when we have difficult financial times, the first place we cut are the most critical services that are needed for our state to survive. The idea that there's this romance around eliminating the personal income tax, that's absolutely going to reduce resources that can be used to fund those very same things. And I'm just here to suggest to you that anyone who's talking about eliminating income tax without replacing it with some other meaningful tax system that is equally predictable and dependable, you're looking at a very difficult situation. The only thing I've heard is increasing property taxes. And again, those are issues that are currently going to the local communities. And by increasing that, you're going to create a disproportionate burden on families and individuals that have investments in their state. People claim that we pay too much. The reality is we have great needs in our state. And unless we talk about what we actually need resources for and how we intend to spend them, we can't necessarily talk about what percentage we should take from here or there. I think a thoughtful approach to government is using the resources and have left over, provided it's sustainable, give that back to individuals and then look at reductions in tax revenue and come up with percentages. But until then, it's too important to ensure that people have health insurance. It's too important to build infrastructure and invest in early childhood education. You can't arbitrarily increase and double staff. By the time those trickle down approaches to come to a state and produce revenue by eliminating personal income tax, we will have lost generations of people that will no longer be in Louisiana because they can't afford to stay here and they're going to go elsewhere to get jobs. Unless you start to increase wages to give people an opportunity to pay additional resources, we're not going to see it. So I'm in favor of making thoughtful, substantive decisions as it relates to tax policy and understanding what our real needs are and funding those priorities. Anything else, if it doesn't make us safer, smarter, healthier, or wealthier, we shouldn't be talking about it. And that's a challenge in this state.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. These next several questions are rapid fire questions. I ask you to simply respond with a simple yes or no answer. We're going to begin with Dr. Wilson and just kind of go bounce back and forth. I'll say each of your names during each one. Okay. The first question is, again, answering yes or no. First question is, will you continue Medicaid expansion? Dr. Wilson, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Scurlock.
Yes.
Question number 2. Will you renew the executive order allowing parishes to decide to grant or deny corporate tax exemptions? Mr. Scurlock, yes or no?
Yes.
Dr. Wilson.
I'm actually heading to break. Wait, so I lost you. Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Will you renew the executive order allowing parishes to grant or deny tax exemptions to corporations?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, very good. This next is for Mr. Scurlock. Do you believe that more effective policing is necessary as a strategy to decrease crime? Mr. Scurlock, yes or no?
Would love the opportunity to yell, but the answer is yes.
Dr. Wilson.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you believe that the state must enforce and crack down on polluting industries and make more stringent regulations for those polluting industries? That's yes or no, Dr. Wilson?
I think that was for me that I would tell you yes, but stringent is such a big word. There are thoughtful ways to incentivize those things that are fair and balanced. So I do think we need to hold individuals accountable for those types of pollution or influence events in communities.
And I kind of took some liberty there. The word that I have actually recorded is stronger. Does that make it easier for you to say yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, all right, Mr. Skurlock.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, very good. The next question is, will you support the return of control of the schools to the New Orleans School Board? Yes or no, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, I'm a proud product of the public school system in New Orleans.
Thank you, Mr. Skurlock. Mr. Skurlock? Did I lose you?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, the next question is, and this is for you, Mr. Skurlock, and then to Dr. Wilson, will you support the creation of a new legislative district to protect minority choice under the Voting Rights Act? Yes or no, Mr. Skurlock?
Yes.
Dr. Wilson?
Congressional seat.
Mr. Skurlock, you might have still been continuing to talk. Dr. Wilson, what was your answer?
My answer is yes,
Yes.
under the congressional seat. I thought I heard you say legislative seat.
Let's see, I'll repeat the question. Us and the legislature in ways that will, well, that's a different question. I'm sorry. We'll just take that yes. Let me ask the next question. Do you vow to lead us and the legislature in ways that will promote a broad-minded approach to addressing environmental issues, even if it includes persuading old school industries to do differently or to change? Mr. Skurlock?
Absolutely. We modernize all the time. Absolutely.
Okay. And Dr. Wilson?
Yes.
All right, very good. All right, that is the end of our rapid fire questions. We're going to now thank you all for those answers that you gave. We're now going to take some questions from our participants in the forum tonight. And one of our pillars, is it Lane? Are you going to take those questions? Let's take 3 questions from our participants tonight.
Sorry. I think that we may need a little bit of time. I don't see any, I don't currently.
That's
see
all right.
any
Let me
question.
ask, are there any questions from our participants for any of the candidates? Simply use the reaction button to signify that you have a question, or write it in the chat. We're going to take 3
I
questions.
see the first hand I see showing is Betty DeMarco.
All right, Betty, please.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. There is an effort with some local environmental groups to get the federal government to put inspectors from OSHA and EPA and other agencies in all chemical plants, to have a inspector to watch what's going on from Cancer Alley all the way to Lake Charles. Would you agree to support something like that?
Let's go with Dr. Wilson first.
So there's absolutely cost to have inspection. And I think we have to be thoughtful, because oftentimes when you see a federal program such as something from OSHA, you might see mandated costs. I do and have long supported strong systems of accountability and to be so,
Dr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson, I'm going to suggest that maybe you turn off your camera, because I know you're in a place where the signal is very static. And so if you turn off your camera, maybe we're going to be able to hear you, because you were breaking up quite a bit.
Very quickly, I think the answer is I do support increased accountability, but I would have to understand the program to see if they're putting the burden to pay for individuals and citizens as opposed to the entities. Those are some details that you have to understand. there needs to be some self-reporting as well as some accountability to ensure there's fair, creating readers and monitors and making that transferable absolutely makes sense.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wilson. Mr.
Next, the next hand that I see is Belinda Parker Brown.
I don't think we gave Mr.
Did
Sherlock
I
a
not
chance.
have
Oh,
a-
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Okay, yeah, certainly, we need to have accountability, and guess what? Cancer Alley is very real. As I mentioned in my business career, I've gone to Asia. Sadly, because of Katrina, in order for our factories to continue, I had to go to Asia. I've been to Beijing. I've been involved or smelled the smog. I've seen it. In our factories over there, it's full accountability. And sadly, that's in a communist environment. So if you think about what they try to do over there in our beautiful country of America, we need to put ourselves first, and we need to take whatever is needed to protect the human health first. We should never, ever risk our employees, our residents, any harmful things. Personally, I think the oil and gas industry needs to be reignited, but I also recognize that what's really the issue is the refineries, and I'm trying to work with coastal environmental groups to find a place where we can relocate them over a period of time to take them out of harm's way. So yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sherlock. Next question, please, Lane.
I think in order, the next question should be from Belinda Parker Brown.
Yes, good evening. My question is that here in Louisiana, we have systemic government corruption. Would you, I guess both of you, would you support some type of comprehensive investigation in regards to, especially when it comes to judicial corruption?
Thank you, Ms. Belinda. Let's go to Mr. Sherlock first.
Absolutely. Look, I think the best thing as an independent candidate, go look at my finance report, see not my donations, but most importantly, the lack of donations. I don't have the trial lawyer supporting me. I've got a few friends and family and pretty much myself because I believe it's worthwhile. I'm running because I have 3 adult children in our state that all live in Orleans Parish. And yes, sadly, they're a member of that ugly club called Crime of the Month. Okay, so yes, full accountability. And I think there should be also not only in office, not just there. I say follow the money from the campaign level. Look at where the money's coming from. Look at the favoritism, look whose doors are open, but most importantly, look whose doors are closed. But at the end of the day, I think you really got to evaluate what candidates really want to make a difference and care for everybody. And that would be, I commend Sean for doing, sadly, Sean and I are doing something we probably shouldn't be doing. We're hustling, we're driving, we're on the road, but we both took it upon ourselves because we believe that you guys are important to be addressed. And I only wish some of the other 14 candidates running were with us as well tonight. But yes, absolutely, full accountability.
Thank you, Mr. Sherlock. Next, Dr. Wilson.
Well, yeah, Mr. Sherlock, I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I'm glad we're here. I am a passenger. I'm not driving. Most importantly, I will tell you, I support accountability at all levels. That's why we have audits and investigations within agencies. Judiciary has processes set up to be able to follow and file complaints that seem to have been lodged based on behavior that's unacceptable. And so I do support looking at that. The reality is oftentimes there's a perception when there is actually evidence, there should be accountability in the process that's transparent, that's swift, and that holds individuals and violators accountable.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. This will be a final question from our participants. Lane?
I think if it looks like we have time. I see that our next question should come from Max and Kathy. And then we had one that was put into the chat from Laura Livodi. And I think that's an important one. So I'd like to propose that we take Max and Kathy's question and then Laura Livodi's question.
Very good. That's fine.
Okay, Max and Kathy, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to address this primarily to Sean Wilson, but both candidates are certainly welcome to answer it. I'm very impressed with your proposed program and have been for some time, Mr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson. However, the question that I want to address is the question of the legislature. You have a legislature which just generally would be opposed to many of the things that you're proposing. And I wonder how you would deal with that. And certainly, again, both candidates can respond to that.
That's a tough one.
Dr. Wilson, you first.
Max, thank you for that question. And that's a question I get often because I am presenting thoughtful policy solutions and ideas. The reality is most of the success I've had has occurred because of bipartisan approach with the same conservative legislature that we had the last years. And if you focus on the real issues, if you aren't threatening the people, if you aren't bullying, and if you're fair and balanced and negotiating with both hands on the table, you can get good things done. And in situations where they would disagree for appropriate reasons. And if we're not successful, I can accept that because no administration is going to get 100% passage of all of their issues. That's what compromise is about. That's what consensus is about. And that's how I've led for the last 25 years, especially when I was as secretary for those 7 years, is being bipartisan and working to find results that will do everything to make us safer, smarter, healthier, and wealthier. And if you can debate and discuss along those principles, I believe that you will still find individuals of different political affiliations, different backgrounds, different races, different ethnic groups who will agree with you on the merits of a case. And so our challenge is to make a case and be very diligent in proposing it, but have no expectations of perfection, but really progress.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Mr. Skurlock.
Can you repeat the question, please?
So if I can sum it up for Max and Kathy, that we know that our legislative body may be adverse to many of the progressive things that may be suggested or desired to be implemented within our state. What is your strategy for dealing with that group of legislators that may present, if I may kind of paraphrase this for Max and Kathy, some very very strong and forceful roadblocks to getting action done?
Well, that's such a broad question, but it's actually very valid. And I guess that's why we have the nasty word called politics, right? I'm not a politician. I'll never go there. I'm simply about business. I can tell you this, from a state that, just in my opinion, not only state-wise, but federally, taxes is to the max. I think it's completely wrong. I'm very much in favor of a flat tax nationwide. It's out of control. It's all about spending. It's not about taxing. Simply, the people are taxed too much. We can barely afford it today. Look around you. Nobody. I mean, there's such a big gap widening every single day between the haves and the have-nots. And quite frankly, from COVID to storms to insurance crisis, we're all affected. I can tell you the people that aren't affected, the ones that somehow have the influence, did not have to be a part of the system. So therefore, the right leader for this state leads, no different than a pastor does from the pulpit. That's why it's not only in God we trust for the United States, same thing goes in Louisiana, and the proper governor would hold everybody accountable, and his best attribute shall be to bring everyone together.
Thank you, Mr. Skurlock. We'll take our last question from our participants. Lane?
I'm going to go ahead, Laura, unless you would prefer to read it yourself. I will go ahead and read your question, which is in the chat. I believe this is addressed to both candidates. She asks, what is your position on carbon capture and storage, or carbon capture utilization and storage? How do you think about the lands through which pipelines will cross and the safety of this technology? I'm going to leave off her last question, which is about a case involving Satartia, Mississippi? Because I think the first two questions she's asked are quite a lot.
All right.
You want me to repeat that? I'll put it first to, I think we're going back and forth. I'll put it first to Mr. Skurlock. What is your position on carbon capture and storage? And what do you think about the lands through which pipelines will cross and the safety of this technology?
So certainly, we have to put the people first. I've actually personally been involved in DEQ matters. Our company's been the cleanup crew. Rollins Environmental got shut down many years ago just outside of Baton Rouge because of their failure to maintain toxic 55-gallon drums. They hired our firm to go in there and clean up a mess. Okay. You know what? I was actually fairly young, about 18 and 19 years old, working for my father. And I saw people from major corporations, not in Louisiana, but outside, taking advantage of Louisiana. Basically, they hired their own informants to do whatever. They hired their own FBI agents to figure out how to break the systems. So we will hold everybody accountable, because that's what all of our testing, and like I said before, Cancer Alley is real. Now, pipelines crossing, it's no different than a road. You know, there's so many pipelines around. There's just like utility lines around. There's stuff. We can make provisions for that. But with as much technology as we have in today's day and age, certainly, if we can detect COVID, we can detect any flaws that would affect the human body. The sanctity of life that's provided from above is no compromise. Okay, just like my stance on abortion, there is no compromise. There's plenty of people want to adopt. So I believe in life rights first, and I also believe in a healthy environment. And I'm proud to have been a part of a company that actually, in my opinion, brings people together. If you know me, I'm in the fun entertainment business. It's all about people making happy. We all seem to get together on things like Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, and of course, our wonderful Louisiana New Orleans Saints. We can do it. It takes a great leader, and that's what I propose we do. Get rid of the word politics, welcome people to our wonderful state. We got enough fairs and festival. Let's bring in some more.
Okay, Mr. Skurlock, I'm going to point out that I don't think you responded to the first question, which is, what is your position on carbon capture and storage? And if you could quickly respond to that.
Yes, of course. Not only should we do it, but it just as much as you have nuclear weapons and bunkers and stuff. Absolutely. Look at Waterford 3. Look at the provisions that we have there. We can and we should do it. So whoever is doing this, that is their responsibility and shall be held accountable by the governmental authorities. If they can't do it, they're shut down and the government will step in.
Okay, I'm going to turn those two questions over to Dr. Wilson.
So very quickly, my position on carbon capture and sequestration is that it's worth investigation. We've been doing deep well injection in our state, and it obviously is something that very naturally we have an advantage of here, given the geoformations that we live with. And where we can do it safely, where we can do it thoughtfully, and where we can do it fairly, I think it's worthy of that investigation, because it does offer solutions to issue that we have in this country in terms of what we do with carbon and its impact in our environment. And it also gets an opportunity to create wealth in our state and employ Louisianians. Now, I say that to say that we need to be judicious. When you look at what happened when we were doing natural gas exploration in the Haynesville Shale, we were fast and furious, and we weren't necessarily thoughtful of how we did it or the benefits accrued by the state as a result of it. Just because we're spending money and allowing that to happen, the state needs to be a part of that. Individuals and property owners made a tremendous amount of money, but there was a tremendous cost to the state for fracking. I think we have to be thoughtful about what's the impact of this beyond what happens for the business sector in terms of getting those resources. And in terms of how they do it, where they do it, it's an opportunity for landowners to be compensated for the space that they occupy. But we also need to make sure that we mitigate the risk and that we provide resources to be able to mitigate that. So we find ourselves in lawsuits right now, legacy lawsuits, because of oil and gas and the inability of the state to hold individuals accountable. How do we address the issue to manage the mitigation on the front end? So clearly, I think it's important for us not to ever say flat out no, but it also talks about implementation and not being reckless with natural protected resources. If we were a state like Florida, would they allow that in the Everglades? Probably not. So I think we should be thoughtful around how do we zone and where do we do it? Should we do it in high concentration neighborhood where families and schools exist? Well, we've seen the impact of that all along the Mississippi River. Let's be thoughtful about where we do this because we're already doing deep well injection. Let's be thoughtful about where we do it, how we do it, and how do we reap the benefits. We can pay for some of the social issues that we have in our state with a cost share or a benefit to the state of Louisiana for doing that. I'm not sure if I answered your second question in terms of the pipeline or landowners, but I did see some value in that in terms of landowners having a right to say no if they choose not to do that, because that is their property right. And I think we absolutely ought to respect that. That's one of the foundations of our state.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. That is the last of our questions from our participants. We're going to wrap up now and conclude our forum by asking you both to give some closing remarks. I'm going to, we began by opening remarks with Mr. Scurlock, so we're going to begin with closing remarks with you, Dr. Wilson. I ask you to give a 90-second closing remark, and then we'll move to Mr. Scurlock. Dr. Wilson.
Well, absolutely, Pastor. Thank you all for what you do and for having the courage to ask the tough questions. I only wish others had the courage to be able to answer them. I'm going to be the kind of governor that will always be willing to face our constituents. I've got a master's degree in public administration and a PhD in public policy. Public service has been my ministry for 25 years, regardless of party, regardless of geography, regardless of income. It's time that we have a governor that's going to invest in doing what's right and be willing to work with folks and not be willing to take just a W. We have to take L's on occasions, and that's what I'll be willing to do, is do that in a way that moves us forward. We've got too much extremism in our state, too much divisiveness, too much hate. Let's love and learn and move forward. You have an opportunity to elect me as governor, and I will assure you that we won't undo the damages or the good success by doing more damage that we saw in the general administration. I'm the governor, I'm the candidate, I'm the person that's going to work to make you safer, smarter, healthier, and wealthier. And if we don't put those things first, if we do anything else, we're wasting time. Those are the things that will overcome poverty, ensure success, ensure economic opportunity and fairness and justice for all. That is what I'm proposing. That is why I'm running to be governor of the great state of Louisiana. We need all the help we can get. You can visit our website at wilsonforla.com, learn more about my issues, learn more about my process and my history. Put my record up against everyone else. I assure you, you will be very satisfied and very proud because no other candidate has the commitment, experience, or accomplishment with integrity, with transparency, with accountability, and with marked success for the people of Louisiana. It's not about me. It's always about we. And that's what I'm looking to do as your next governor here in Louisiana. So thank you all, and blessings to each and every one of you for taking time to listen to us, and to Mr. Scurlock for agreeing to do this call as well.
Dr. Wilson, we are very grateful for you taking the time out to be here tonight. Many blessings and the greatest of success to you as you continue on the campaign trail. And may God keep you safe and continue to espouse what your platform is. Make it clear to people. Thank you so much. Mr. Scurlock.
Well, once again, thank you for the opportunity. This is beautiful. And I think, here we are using Zoom. And by using Zoom, we get to communicate, we get to express feelings, concerns, emotions. But most importantly, the most important thing we have here is a level of care. And as governor, he needs to be the chief person of care, the chief person to lead, to direct. Just like whenever we have a big disaster, usually it's hurricanes in the state of Louisiana. When he gets up there, he tells the people as it is, shouldn't sugarcoat it. He holds them accountable, he leads them, and he's also realistic. And just in the case of like New Orleans for ordering evacuations, it's no different. It happens in education, it happens in economics, but most importantly, none of that today really matters until we clean up our criminal justice system. Even the criminals don't want to be shot at, okay? So there's no greater issue. It's not even economics. It's people got to take matters in their own hand. The governor needs to just unleash and do the 4 words that I said, whatever it takes. Sadly, in superhero world, who did they have to call in? They called in Batman, a third party. That's who I am. I am a no party independent. I don't want to get to be political. I'm not. I was born a Republican. I ran as a Democrat for the city of New Orleans mayor back in 2017. I was so upset with our federal government in 2020. I changed to an independent, and believe it or not, a Southern born boy at Baptist Hospital ran for president of the United States. You know why? 4 letters, CARE. I will be the chief person to care for this entire state, all issues 24/7 from the day I take office to the day my term shall be expired. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate Sean being here. I pray that the others soften their heart. And if anything, I pray that all this negative attacks against Sean, against everybody else. The good news is I'm not a participant that, because you know what? Sure, I'm down the totem pole, but I can tell you what, my level of care, I think, is at the highest. So thank you for the opportunity. God bless you. That's the only reason I'm here. If it wasn't for my faith and belief in the whole state, I would not be doing. And my most important assets are my 3 children who live in Orleans Parish. They're educated in Orleans. I love it. I put up with it, and I'm determined to make a difference. I am number 14 on the ballot. I have 2 websites, votescurlock.com and Scurlock Wins, WINS.com. I appreciate your consideration, and I graciously look forward to October 14th, and I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mrs.
Pastor
Gerlach.
Manning.
We certainly appreciate you being here tonight. Many blessings to you as you continue on the campaign trail. And we just wish you well and health and safety as you continue to espouse what you feel is right in your heart. And so again, to both of you, I just want to commend you both for being here tonight. There were 7 candidates that were invited. You are the 2 that showed up, and certainly showing up means a lot to all of us here at Justice and Beyond. And the fact that you did not waver in being here and did not temper your responses because there were fewer candidates, but you spoke honestly and openly. We greatly appreciate that. So thank you again for being here. And we look forward to hearing from you at some time in the very near future. So God bless both of you.
Pastor Manning.
Yes.
Pastor Manning, I just want to let the candidates know that I noticed I went back on our Facebook page, and someone shared this forum tonight to 14 big groups. So whoever did that, we really appreciate you. We thank you for spreading this good news out about our candidates that were faithful and they stuck to their word. A man that stick to their word is an important man to the human being.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Well said, Valerie. Appreciate that. Thank y'all, candidates. Appreciate you. I'm gonna let y'all go. I know you have a busy schedule. Let me say this for those of you who are still on this forum tonight, just a few orders of business. Number 1, we want to give any candidates that are running for any other office an opportunity to introduce themselves and just say a quick word about the platform on which they are running. And so is there any other candidates that are running for any office that would wish to have about 90 seconds to 2 minutes to speak? Any candidates here tonight? I'll ask once again, are there any candidates running for any office, be it statewide or local, that would like to have an opportunity to address our participants tonight? All right, very good. Hearing none, I'm going to ask then if there are any announcements for many of our participants tonight for about any upcoming events that we need to be aware of, that we can potentially participate in that are coming up. If you have any announcements, please make them at this time. Any announcements tonight?
Yes, Pastor Manning, I'm going to put it in the chat.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Sister Belinda. Appreciate you. Good to see you. Any other announcements tonight? All right. Hearing none, we're going to proceed then with our closing prayer, as is our custom at Justice and Beyond, until we meet again for our next forum, which will be next week. So let's close it in prayer tonight. Thank you all for being here at Justice and Beyond. Let me just, let's see. Jeff, would you close us in prayer?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
God of love and justice, God of peace and strength and hope, we thank you for the honest participation of the two candidates who came tonight to share with us. We ask that you bless them for their concern for the state and their concern for all of us. We ask that you would support each one of them in their labor of working around the state to press for positive change in our state. We pray for the rest of us that you would give us the wisdom, the courage, and the strength to support what we know is right and what is good in whatever candidate is running for office in this election season. Bless us now and keep everyone here, the candidates who came and the candidates who did not come. May your peace, strength, and presence be with us all. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
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 Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Jeff. Appreciate you all for being here tonight. I hope that you just gain more strength and being an educated voter. That's what we want. We don't want you to go to the ballot box and just vote without being well educated about who to vote for and where they stand. And so now that you know, go tell somebody else and continue to show up for justice and beyond. Good night,
Pastor
everybody.
Manning,
Be well, be kind, be
can you tell
compassionate.
everybody do the early morning, do the early voting, voting,
Yes.
early voting, please.
Yes.
Ask your family, your friends, your foes, your neighbors, your enemies, doesn't matter. Early vote.
And
Early
know this.
vote.
Yes.
Pastor Manning, early
Early
voting
vote.
starts on September
You can only
30th.
vote once.
Early voting starts on September 30th.
September 30th. Very good.
That's
Early
correct.
voting
Vote
starts
September 30th.
Know this too. Justice and Beyond is a part of Together New Orleans. Together New Orleans is doing a pledge to vote campaign, which means that you can come on Thursday to the assembly. And I'm blanking on when that's going to be, but it's going to be on Thursday. Go to the Together New Orleans website. You can then receive cards that you can get your friends and family and members of whatever institution that you are to sign a pledge that they will go out and vote. We're not telling people where to vote or who to, not where to vote, but who to vote for. We're just simply telling people you need to be at the ballot box to vote, because the numbers that are showing up to vote are abysmal, and we don't need to continue down that line. We need people to get out and vote. And so you are welcome to come to that. Go to the Together New Orleans website and then show up on Thursday.
That's Thursday, the 21st of September.
And that's going to be where, Jeff?
At St. Joan of Arc.
Yes.
Blessed Sacrament.
Yes.
Blessed Sacrament in Carrollton.
Okay, very good, very good. We want everybody to come out and pledge to vote, and then take cards and go get others, friends, family, and institution members to also pledge to vote. We've seen a 40% shift in casual voters from us using drives like this and campaigns like this and getting people to pledge to vote. So we're going to do it again, and we're going to up the number of casual voters to people who are consistent voters.
That's right. We pushing for early voting. We pushing
That's
for
right.
early voting.
That's right. All right, everybody.
Wonderful. And right now I'm just pushing. I just put the link in the chat. I want everybody to go and purchase this book. Educate yourself on The Verdict Is In on Reparations Now. It's so important to all of us. The book is $30, and it's the name of the title of the book is The Verdict Is In, Reparations Now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Melinda. All right, everybody, we're really concluding there. God bless you all. Be safe, be kind, be good to each other. Continue to work on the side of justice. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Manning.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.